Michael, we are all adults making decisions moment by moment. So he has wisdom with him. We have a couple more minutes. So did we do a sound check with everyone on the screen? Could you be on mute so that we can make sure we can get some nice focus here? Okay, and I'm just gonna give me a thumb up or down when I call your name. Can you hear us, Mike? Sandy? Ernie? Marge? Michael Bodnick, who's driving, do not take your hands off the wheel. Mrs. Bodnick, could you have a counseling session with him after this Zoom? All right?
I fear you would be more effective than I.
Thank you all very much. I wanted to, before we started, I want to acknowledge that your chairman has been in the air more than on the ground. This weekend was one of 9 dates I have with Delta between now and the start of December. So I continue to be in the air more than I'm on the ground. Thus why, when one works with an incredible group of humans, one does not have concern because everybody else does the work. And I just want to let you know how much I appreciate each of you on the screen. Thank you. Let us start now with our opening devotion. It is Steve's turn, who hasn't been working hard enough with us. He took this on also. Okay, we're ready.
So, later this month, as you all know, we begin to commemorate Martin Luther's Reformation. So I thought it'd be fun to share with all of you some of Luther's advice on prayer. According to Luther Seminary in St. Paul, Minnesota, Martin Luther's comments and instructions of prayer permeated his work. Luther sought to build an evangelical prayer practice that reflected the key insights of his theology. Just as God redeems the unworthy human, so God promises to hear and respond on praying despite his or her unworthiness. Now, I really love this. In 1535, Martin Luther wrote a book for his barber containing practical advice on prayer. It's titled A Simple Way to Pray, and if you go online, you can actually buy that book. Luther recommended that prayer be the first business of the morning and the last at night, guarding yourself carefully against those false ideas which tell you, oh, just wait a little while, I will pray in an hour when I get some other things done. Such thoughts, he said, get you away from prayer into other affairs, which will then hold your attention. Now, thanks to the Luther Center at Penn State University, I want to this morning offer you 2 of Luther's prayers. But if you reread the document, Deborah includes it in the summary, you will find that there are actually 3 prayers here, one of which is an evening prayer, which I'm not going to read for you this morning. So I want to read to you first the morning prayer of Martin Luther. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. I thank you, my Heavenly Father, through Jesus Christ, your dear Son, that you would have kept me this night from all harm and danger. And I pray that you would keep me this day also from sin and every evil, that all my doings in life may please you. For into your hands I commend myself, my body and soul, and all things. Let your holy angel be with me, evil foe may have no power over me. Amen. Now, as we all know, Martin Luther struggled his entire life over his basic ability to deserve anything from God. And so here's a prayer known as Martin Luther's prayer. And as you listen to it, you just hear the voice of Martin Luther in his anguish. Behold, Lord, an empty vessel that needs to be filled. My Lord, fill it. I am weak in faith. Strengthen thou me. I am cold in love. Warm me and make me fervent, that my love may go out to my neighbor. I do not have strong and firm faith. At times I doubt and am unable to trust thee altogether. O Lord, help me. Strengthen my faith and trust in thee. Thee I have sealed the treasuries of all I have. I am poor. Thou art rich, and didst come to be merciful to the poor. I am a sinner. Thou art upright. With me there is an abundance of sin, in me there is the fullness of righteousness. Therefore I will remain with you, of who I can receive, but to whom I may not give.
Amen.
That was a fun research project.
Yes, if you had time to do a research project. Okay. Okay. Oh, is there more? Okay, a three-feature. Here, what? Okay. No, I don't think
Yes,
so.
the other.
Okay, all right, no.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, to get ourselves focused, I want to first check with Ernie, is the October 24th date firm with the council yet?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so we are good. We have a delivery. We also have, so we have not only a performance day, but we also have to make sure our materials go to the council well in advance of performance day, because this little baby deserves to be read, and people need enough time to read this little baby. So I want to make sure I haven't factored in the date on when we have to ink this final so that it's ready for the council. So may I suggest that our focus today is to finalize the baby, all right? And then we will work on how much time do we have with the council and how are we going to deliver positive outcomes? Okay, so let's make that our main focus right now, but Ernie has something to add there.
Yeah, I want to go further than that.
Okay,
The way right now for the 24th, I believe that I can put this on the agenda first, so that, because I'm hoping that we'll have a good number of this group able to attend. And just so you're not, having to come later in the agenda and wonder when are we really going to get our chance to speak, I'm going to try and put this group up front. The second thing is I'm going to work on a series of motions that I intend to, present, as preliminary draft motions to the council in support of these recommendations. I'm not looking for just, one blanket, we accept it all, because that doesn't have a good chance of passing. It'll get into all kinds of discussion. So I'm going to try and break it down into, essentially motions for each section. The third piece is, as we've been discussing a little bit, we believe that the Fellowship Hall sound system is a high priority that we ought to be bringing to the SAKLC Foundation, their Community Impact Fund, as a growth opportunity for the church, and that they should be, helping to fund that audio system. So I want to have the draft of the grant request, and not a draft, I mean, what we expect to be the actual grant request, to bring to that meeting, so that we can also then look to have the council endorse that grant request and say, yes, from the council's perspective, this is our top priority for the foundation to consider approval. And now for time frame, I don't see how I can give more than a half an hour to this topic. And so I think we ought to roughly consider, is that 15 minutes to get through the presentation and 15 minutes to get through the motions and discussion and try and get things passed. So that's my input, is let's try and go first. Let's try and keep it a very tight, document, a tight presentation. Let's get the document finished this week so that the council has next week to read it. And then at the meeting, we'll try and get all the way through a series of approved motions and an approved grant request that we can send to the foundation.
any reflections or comments on this approach that Ernie has laid out for us? Any reflections, comments, concerns on that approach?
It's a very good timeline.
Okay, it's a good timeline, and I think us focusing on you get 15 minutes, kids, will help us not repeat things that do not be repeated, and we can optimize our 15 minutes, okay? So, all right. So let's go to the baby, All right. And again, bravo to everyone who's weighed in. I love how everyone found the errant zero. Okay, and so that is, you planted that to see. Okay, I know you planted that. All right, so Steve, what will help you bring this?
Well, so I want to commend Marjorie and Jane for giving me things over the weekend that were helpful. Marge's were mainly a series of what I would call better adjectives, if that makes sense. And I accepted every one of hers that she gave because I think they are much better. Then Ernie and Marge both raised this issue and caught one of the state-of-the-art technology descriptions that I had missed, and there were actually a couple more, not just in the front. But we talked about having high-quality technology. One who doesn't like using the same adjective to describe different things in the same sentence or using it twice. I didn't want to use high-quality preaching and high-quality technology. That just didn't seem right. So I offer up to all of you what I've suggested become the new three. Michael may want to, when he gets done driving, here's Jane, and she's trying to get in. Sure. So
We just lost him.
yeah. So I want to offer these three dynamic preaching, excellent music, high quality technology. I mean, I struggled with what do we use because I didn't want to use academic preaching, even though that's what it is, because that wouldn't attract people. And so I used dynamic. That was the best word I could find to describe the preaching part, and keep the excellent in music, and then use the high quality for technology. So those are the three words, adjectives, descriptives that I've offered. If they're good with you all, I hope that the church will start using those three in other places in their marketing as well.
All right, so dynamic, excellent, and high quality, which actually you could use interchangeably with any one of those topics, but let's go with who they were each paired with. Are we comfortable with the pairing on dynamic preaching, excellence in music? Michael has a comment, go for it.
In place of high quality technology, would you be open to something like engaging technology?
I'm open to whatever all you want.
The reason that I say that is because I think it more accurately describes what we're trying to do with technology in terms of engaging people. And then it doesn't make it seem like we are going to be the church with all of the most expensive, best tools all the time, because we probably won't be. But what we will be is we'll try to have the best equipment possible to engage visitors and congregation members throughout the year in a variety of programs.
I wish we lost Ernie, but I wish he was on because he's one who has talked a lot about what we got to use in that descriptive.
All right, so while Sandy, you seem to have a wrinkled brow on engaging. You do not have a concern with. I rather love the, we're bringing our hugs in. We want people to feel that technology are us and not them. So, I love the concept, but who else has comments on engaging? I don't know where Ernie went. Is he over there on the phone? Who's on the phone trying to get in?
Jane and Fred are trying to get in. They can't get in. I wonder if they have the wrong.
All right, so, okay, could someone call them and say, check your agenda, or do I text them?
I've got, here's the link.
Yes, so can you go ahead and paste it? Ernie, wow, Jane's on the screen.
We had a terrible time getting in. I had to go in by browser. I don't know, a different way, but we're here, both of us. Sorry.
I wanted to focus where we are with our adjectives. Okay, so we've got dynamic preaching, excellence in music, and high quality technology.
Mhm.
Recommendation from Michael has been could we shift out of high quality technology into engaging technology? Because that's actually our goal, is to have the congregation feel that it's technology is us, not it's about the equipment.
Yeah, I have no problem with engaging.
No,
Yeah.
no. I had originally picked that out of the suggestions and then either one.
You have a
Yeah,
thought?
I like engaging better than excellent, or, yeah, it puts the focus on how do we use it rather than what do we buy.
So I think we're March, is that a wrinkled brow, or are you okay with engaging?
I was pondering. Yes, I'm fine with engaging. I was trying to think it through, but it makes sense because what we were saying at the beginning is that this is the focus on you, the members, and the potential members. So engaging would just reinforce that.
All right, okay. So are we okay then with dynamic, excellence, and engaging?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Here? Okay, we're good, yes. Steve?
Okay, the other thing, I'm glad Jane and Fred are on now, and Fred, it's great to see you. So Jane thought that on page 12 of the draft, under the priority 3 recommendations, I sort of had a sentence that was missing a whole bunch of words. And so I haven't sent this out to everybody because I think there were just too many versions, and I didn't want to do that, but I want to read to you. What I've done on number 5 is, as live streaming becomes more common, we might seek to find ways to engage those who primarily use such live streaming as their worship, even considering ways for their full participation, such as a reader. A higher level of two-way technology would be required to interact with the current live streaming. Now remember, this is the priority 3, which is long-term goals with no set dates. So this is not something we're doing right away, but down the road at some point, we would love to find a way where, for example, someone from their home could read the scriptures that Sunday and everybody would be able to hear that. I mean, that's engaging them, what we'd like to do down the road. So if that sentence is okay, Jane caught the poorly crafted sentence, and I've tried to correct it. If that's okay, then I've accepted all of Marge, all of Jane's, and all of Ernie's recommendations, and we've got that one word change. From Steve's perspective, I'm okay with that as the final product. The one thing missing here is to turn this over to Michael and Sandy, because they were going to look at what we've learned and how we want to present that. And I don't know if they had time to get together or not, but if not, they got a week yet to do it.
All right, so let's take this in the pre-Sandy and Mike telling us their section thoughts. Are we okay with this enhanced sentence about the future regarding making live streaming two-way? Are we okay with that addition? Thumbs up or down, please? Thumbs up or down? We're okay on the thumbs up. Okay, so you are good. All right. So now let's shift to the Sandy and Mike, your input, please.
Mike, do you want to start or shall I?
Okay, Mike, you're on mute. Mike, unmute.
There, it cooperated now. So go ahead, Sandy.
Okay. Well, Mike and I talked at some length about this, and we honestly feel that Steve has captured in his opening address the things that came out of the survey. I think the survey may have sparked the document that Steve started to work on. And if we go back, we don't really think that massaging it, so to speak, and redoing it would make any additions. What we did do is we have a concept of a Word document, which is getting closer to being together. And frankly, you could use it as an exhibit or a second handout, however you'd want to work with it. And what it would show would be the numeric results, the metric results of our survey. It would have the pie charts in it to give a visual of it. And then there's a little piece on nuggets that I can share with you that I don't think are strategic nuggets that would belong in a document such as Steve's, but they're more operational or heads up kind of documents that might be used by staff or committees working on certain things, and I can share those with you. Does that cover it, Mike?
Yeah, I think you did, Sandy. I think you captured what we talked about.
Okay. If you'd
So I
like
think-
to hear, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, Sandy, go ahead.
If you'd like to hear some of the, what I would call mini nuggets or operational nuggets that I pulled out of it. I'd say we received a lot of feedback that could be incorporated into the AV protocols that are important to people. Sensitivity to the timing of when we post archival work. Sensitivity to when we start the filming or the videoing of the service. The importance of links. People want links that they can use and they want them to be easy to find. And having words on the device screen is a very popular idea. To me, these are all operational things. Secondarily, it seems to be an issue. And obviously we know the lightning issue and all that, but some of this was written before that issue. And I have this feeling that we have some device users who really don't know how to adjust their own sound. As part of our training, I think that might be an important piece. I know we're sensitive to this, but one thing that came out in the survey that I kind of picked up on is we have to be careful not to give the impression that we think everyone is online. I know that we're very, focused in saying you can call the office to do this, or this is available in paper. But as we grow and develop our technology, we have to make sure that we understand that we have a significant population that just isn't going to use it. On the website piece, the only thing I took out of that is maybe an annual refresher training as part of our training, another operational idea. And lastly, there was a suggestion to use the website to pay for more things like flowers, etc. Taking that one step further, I said to myself, is this an opportunity for the church to refocus on online giving, which can be a very good thing for the church? So those are things that I just pulled out of comments that I think might be helpful, not to the broad reader of our strategy, but to the managers of our systems and functions.
So I think that's excellent stuff. All right, so I'm gonna parse it. One is you're good to go with your report, Steve, so we're not gonna tweak that. I think, and then we have two outcomes from the Sandy Mike discussion. One is something that is shareable, just about what we learned as an addendum or a piece that could be variety shared. But then there's also the operational management nuggets that we want to make sure goes to staff and appropriate committee leaders throughout the church. So we're going to optimize the information in three ways: council report, addendum, and an operational memo. So did I hear that correctly in terms of what's going to happen?
So by addendum, after I put the council, that addendum.
No. So no, so the council report is a whole thing.
Right.
This baby, which addendum's not a good word, our summary report, our summary findings sheet. Okay, so it's our summary findings sheet that actually could be shared through various communications vehicles. Okay, if you ask people to participate in a survey, you better tell them what you learned, because we want them to participate in the next survey.
And,
So
the expectation, if I may, the expectation is that all of the comments will be captured in the summary document so that people can pull their own nuggets out of them. I just pulled the ones that related to what I was thinking about.
Yeah, really what we had talked about, Sandy and I, was, use Steve's summary of, here's what we learned, kind of thing, so that we're coordinated. Whatever we give the council is the same thing we're publishing to, here's our survey results. We don't have two different things going. Give them the data in pie chart form, maybe not so much raw data, but here's the data, the actual percentages, numbers, those kinds of things. But then include those comments so that people, if they're reading and looking for, just like we used it, there were certain questions that we asked for comments, and those comments might be appropriate. I think it all needs to be in that survey summary document kind of thing.
So the survey summary document would have like the executive findings, and then if you want more, click here or read more. Okay, are we good with that?
Well, so for purposes of the council, I'm picturing giving all three documents to them. You know, my bias is always give them everything they need so that they can make sure that they're confident in making a well-informed decision. So, you know, Steve's overall document is the one we're going to focus on, but then two attachments, one being here's the survey summary results, and the other being here's some operational nuggets that we're going to be suggesting get implemented, and they get all three of those.
Absolutely, no problem. The more we share, the better. So giving them everything so they have, I am experienced with some elected officials who love the excuse, I did not have enough information. So we are going to make sure that all of the elected officials will have all the information that we have. We are not holding back anything. I just want them to be in 3 different documents so that we don't, you know, clutter them up. Okay? Are we good with that plan? So Mike and Sandy, we're still relying on you for 2 and 3 while Steve finalizes 1. Are we good with that? Okay, all right, we're good with that. Okay, all right, so we're set there. I want to move, Ernie, what kind of input would you like from your team here that will help you as you smallify the many motions? Or what would you like from the team about we got 15 minutes of fame, people, that's it.
Well, next week I will send out a first version of here's how I'm thinking about setting up the motions for the meeting, and would like everybody to review those, and with really 2 things that, you know, they seem like they're asking for, you know, sufficient commitment to each thing, and that I'm not asking for anything extraneous that, you know, seems like it's above and beyond. So I need to, the meeting on the 24th, I'll need to get the final documentation out for that, you know, 4 or 5 days ahead of time. So early next week, I'll be able to focus on getting those, you know, draft motions put together. And if you all can expect to look at them next Tuesday or Wednesday, that would be ideal for being able to finalize those in my mind. Seem reasonable?
All right, so what that says to me, pardon? Okay, so we do not have a scheduled meeting for next week at this point. I will, I don't know how to do this easily. Ernie wants until October 18th to put his thoughts together. Am I correct on that, Ernie? October 18th?
Yes.
Okay, so, but.
And I don't know if we need a meeting or if it's just, you know, we can do it on email.
Suggest that we might have a meeting because we do benefit from each other's conversation. Because I think on the 23rd, honestly, I want to rehearse it. I want us to take our 23rd meeting as our dress rehearsal to make sure we are a smoothly running operation. So again, I'll find a date. I'm again in the air that week. So I'm going to find a slot that hopefully people can participate for conversation, all by Zoom. All right, so if I can take a stab at something on October 18th, but Ernie, I just want to be sure. If my brain works, if we want to give the council enough time to digest this treasure trove of information, when do they need to get it? Because we need to meet before we press the send button. So there's a lot for anybody to digest with all the other issues the council is on their brain. Are we sure, when are you gonna press the send button to the council?
On the 19th. Yeah, no,
On the
we ought to.
Okay.
You should see my input on the 17th. We can discuss it and finalize it on the 18th, and I'll look to get everything sent out on the 19th.
Okay, all right, so we will work for a Zoom on the 18th. I do want to hear from the team because each one of you is important. Is there a time on the 18th? Deborah, please do not schedule it during this window.
11 o'clock, the 12.
No, okay, just tell me when. Okay, any other no's on the 18th that do not work for the whole team?
It would be helpful if it was after 10 o'clock in the morning.
11, all right, going to March. What is your not on October 18th?
Later in the morning to the rest of the day is fine.
Yeah,
You're good.
I'm picking up my grandson at the airport, and I'm not sure what time, but Fred would be here for sure.
Sandy?
I am tied up from 12 till about 1:32.
Okay. Mike?
My conflict comes later in the day. I have meetings scheduled after 3 o'clock. So as long as we were before that, I'm fine.
So what I'm hearing, I'm gonna see how 2 o'clock works for everybody. 2 o'clock on the 18th. Do I lose anybody at 2 o'clock other than Jane doesn't know when she's going to the airport? 2 o'clock? 2 o'clock?
What time is Bellfire for my mom?
Michael?
2 o'clock should be okay.
2 o'clock on the 18th, I will send out the Zoom link with whatever else I need to send out on the 18th, okay? We good there? I sure hope I'm not presenting at the conference at that time, but I don't care. Okay, so no, I'm gonna be, I am presenting at 3, I am presenting at a conference at 3 o'clock that day. So we will make it a quick meeting if you don't mind, because I have to go and do a sound check for that meeting, okay? Would 1:30 work? Who do I lose at 1:30? I lose Sandy.
Well, I might be late. Why don't you start and I will join as soon as I can.
Okay, I'm just a little worried that I would like to be there. So how about we split the difference and take 1:45? Okay, I'm going for 1:45. I don't miss Sandy too much. Okay,
I will probably not be there because we're going to be starting choir and bells. But you don't need me, so it's okay.
well, that's right, because you're not presenting. Well, you're still, I'll go back to 2 o'clock and I'll leave and put someone else in charge when I have to do my sound check.
So let me go
2
back on
o'clock
that.
better for you, Michael, or worse?
So Michael, we're counting on you to wrap up the grant request. So I think tying the discussion of the motions in with the grant request is going to be important. So I would like you to be there.
So Michael, do we miss you at 2?
No, 2 o'clock should be okay.
One with 2 and I need someone if it goes long on our discussion. Okay, that way we get everybody there. Okey dokey. 2 up. All right. Okay. What else would we like to talk about? Do we want to spend any time today talking about communication between now and the council meeting? And I do hope that the bulletin will stop saying we meet at 9:45. I don't know how that happens, but somehow we're at the bulletin every week for 9:45. We're always 9 o'clock if we are not at 2 o'clock. So we're now either at 9 or 2. Michael.
So I just want to say, as you're talking about communication, communicate away. We had a good Sunday, and everything seems to be cooking in the sanctuary now. There's a couple little things that we're needing to fix, but I think we had a great Sunday with in-person people and online people, and it looked good. It sounded good. I think we're over the hump. So, messaging, I think right now is good, however you want to do it.
Well, it does seem we have an opportunity between now and the 24th to let the congregation know that we've been busy bunnies. Okay, so, Marge, are you comfortable swinging back in on the we're busy bunnies?
Not a problem. I actually wrote up a kind of a brief article for last week, and we decided to maybe we should hold it a little bit. So as Chris and I had mentioned last week, or yeah, I guess we did. It seems like it was weeks ago. We were going to focus on the survey results, and so incorporate what Steve did in that sort of first page of the recommendation. Just a little the highlights of a few things that we learned from the survey, just to let people know that we listened, we learned, and thank you for your feedback. And then if we want to do one more, then we could start talking about things that are already currently underway. But I guess I'd like some feedback on that. Would be the following week.
Chris and
I'm just also seconding what Mark said as we talked prior to this, and then what happened this week was we had directed our pastor to do the communication about much more broad about what happened with the lightning strike, and I thought he did an excellent job of that communication and got that out there. Now we can move beyond that. So I agree, we wanted some direction as to now, is it okay to feature that we've got this new AV team, or now can we insert some pictures? We're just not really sure. We're sensitive to timing.
I'm going to open it up to the group, and I'd like to parse it in 2 parts. We have 2 weeks before the 24th. So what would we like to do in the coming week? This week, excuse me, we could do something this week, and then what do we want to do next week? So, knowing the journey that we are on to the 24th. Steve.
Yeah, the one thing I want to suggest to Marge is we communicate with the congregation is that we talk to them about the fact that our recommendations are going to be in 3 phases, i.e. now through 2024, and then the next 2 years, the out years, and then down the road. Because I think there's a sense in the congregation that almost too much is going on and too many people are asking for money about too many different things. And I just think it's really important for us to send the word that we're not trying to do everything instantly. This is a comprehensive series of recommendations over a number of years. That's all I want to offer.
I'm going to take other comments before we decide which happens which week. Okay, so I want to other comments that we think are important to get out to the congregation before the 24th. Because the nice part is, oh no, I'm going to say that. All right, so Steve, in your, would we be okay if this week we give them some, hey, we asked you, you told us, and then next week we can talk, we're going to the council with the 3 phases.
Yeah.
Would that be an okay staging of communications? Okay. Ernie?
I'm not sure why we would want to publicize when this is going to council. I don't want to put the pressure on the council to say, okay, the whole congregation's waiting for you to make a decision. You got to deal with this right now. I'd rather, let that play out, and then we'll get back and say, this has gone to the council and here's what the outcome is.
So could we still talk about our plan is to share with the council 3 phases, but not mention any dates?
Right. I think that's great.
Okay,
Because
so
this
don't
is
say October
clearly,
20. We just say this
Yeah,
is
because-
what we're thinking right now.
well, and it supports the notion that there are a series of near-term recommendations in there that the council will need to make decisions on. And there's a long-range planning aspect to it that we're going to want the council to weigh in on. And so I think it supports both those things. I just don't want to put it on any particular deadline for the council.
I've got a thought and a question. Amongst all of this presentation of direction for years ahead, do we need to identify a pipeline for someone to get to whomever or what organization when a thought comes up regarding audiovisual and they say, where do we go with it? This is something that I just thought of or experienced, and I want to talk to somebody.
Does anyone have an opinion on that? I'll offer mine.
Sure.
Okay, I would suggest that anybody who has an idea, because remember, our work, we are a task force, which means we evaporate after we present to council. So my opinion is if anybody does have anything they'd like to suggest, it would go to staff. But I'm throwing it
Share
out.
that.
Change.
They didn't hear you.
Do we need to share that as we continue to communicate with the membership?
Well, I think right now, I'm gonna smallify it again. I think between now and council's action, it should be, I mean, they already know we're a task force and they can
Yeah.
connect with the task force. I think it depends on what comes out of the council meeting, on how the council would like to direct the future direction.
Okay.
But I remember I'm one person, so I'm very open to the proper protocols. Ernie has a thought and then Steve has.
I want this group to give the council as many recommendations as possible. Yes, it may be the council that needs to see how is that going to work going forward, but I think this group has a point of view about that, and we should include that so that the council at least knows how we're thinking about it, so that they're not starting from scratch. The other thing I want to get into is let's not think that this task force disbands at noontime on the 24th. As you were alluding, it depends on what comes out of the council, and we're counting on then following through on the grant request and hopefully getting our first recommendation funded so that we can move it forward. So, a little more time past October.
I want anyone to interpret that when we walk out of the council meeting, we hug and say goodbye. But I do think we will transition out of existence in some way. So Ernie, we're not abandoning the team, okay? We are here. Steve, you had a
Yeah,
concept here.
I just want to suggest, because primarily to Marge in terms of communication, I think what Fred is talking about is important, that there are people in the congregation who are going to have thoughts and they want to know where to go with them. And when we say going to staff, let's be honest, that means going to Michael. Let's be honest about that. And I don't think that's necessarily fair to Michael. So I would like to suggest that we invite or encourage the congregation to share their thoughts with staff and or members of the council, because we ought to encourage a better dialogue between members of the congregation and the council anyway.
Yes.
And so
It's an opportunity.
as a part of this, I just don't want it to all dump on Michael. I think that's unfair.
So I'll debate it for a moment.
Sure.
I'm all for not whelming Michael. I'm all for that. But as long as council always remembers they are receiving input and they are not supposed to then go off and implement. Okay, so I think individual council members need to remember their role is as a council. So if someone talks to them as a council member, they either talk to the appropriate staff member or to their shared governance committee about whatever cool idea someone came forth with. So as long as that's in place, I think it's good.
Yeah.
Okay,
So thinking about Ernie's recommendation that we give the council as many recommendations, does that need to be added in Steve's document under the priority 1 recommendations, for instance? Do we need to add something like that in there?
It is an immediate thing that we need to act on. So yeah, it belongs up front.
Michael, if you got some particular wording, send it to me.
I don't, but
Michael.
No, Michael A.
Okay. Yes.
I gotcha.
Which in recommendation reflects what he's saying, so I said, I like what you're saying, tell me what I need to add to operationalize his comment.
Or the two mics can work together.
Sure.
All right, okay, all right. Okay, wait a second, where were we? Okay, we're back on communications. All right, I want to make sure Marge is comfortable with where we landed in the next 2 weeks for your themes.
Well, my notes say, and I like feedback to see if I captured this correctly. This week we will put another article in Connections and the Bulletin talking about the survey results. And it'll capture some of the rhetoric that Steve had put at the very beginning of our recommendation to council. Then the following week on the 18th, we will talk about the recommendation in sort of, general terms. Things that we see is going to be phased into, 3 segments over a number of years, recognizing what we can do now, recognizing what needs to be budgeted for in the future, and really realizing we can't do it all right now. Does that sound correct? I'm not hearing Chris at all. I'm sorry.
No sound.
We're losing sound.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, we had too many voices, so would you speak right into that speaker right there?
So, I'm right down here. So I think the way to handle what Chris is concerned about whether we have to go to council before we talk about our phased in recommendations. And I'm suggesting we don't need to do that. We just need to say that the report we are drafting will recommend that a series of technology initiatives phased in over a period of time. Some are immediate, some are long-term, and some are way out. So we just say that our recommendations or our report will phase this in over a period of time.
So it's like a calming thing of, don't worry, we're not doing a revolution. It's kind of an evolving.
Yes.
All right, is everybody okay with that plan? Okay, all right, okay. All right, I'm now open to other topics people think we should talk about today, Steve.
Bernie and I had a quick conversation yesterday after church about the presentation to the council. I think we need to know who among our task force would like to be a presenter so that we don't exclude anybody. And then there has to be somebody who will say, okay, we need these 3 or 5 people to speak. And here's what they're going to do. For example, Lad Skelly has said he would like to present to the council the section on training that he's developed. So he's already volunteered to do that section. I want to make sure that we know if there's anybody else in the group who would like to take a certain section or a certain recommendation, so we don't exclude them.
I moved to how quickly 15 minutes disappears.
Yeah.
So I have a bias about more focus on, we are assuming that they are all adults and they have digested the treasure trove of information that we have given them. So I don't think we actually should be talking about sections of the report. I think we should be talking about the sections of the motions that fit it. This is why we're talking to you about this is the motion we want to do. So I'm in a little bit scared of how our time will get eaten up if we're going to talk about what's in the report. We have to assume they read it. That doesn't mean they did, but we shall assume that they read it. So I'm sorry I jumped in there, but so who wants to be a speaker? Who loves to do the speaking? Who wants to do the speaking? Speaking. I'm watching for those hands. Okay.
I'm sorry, I am just not going to be there on the 24th. I just wouldn't.
That's right, that we remembered that, yes.
And if you remember, I'm also, when we changed the date, unfortunately, but fortunately for me, the 24th is my mother's 91st birthday. And 6 of my 8 siblings will be celebrating, including myself, with her at a beautiful breakfast that very morning. So I can't even Zoom with you, but my prayers will be with everybody. And I apologize for not being able to make the date with you all to see it through.
I
Michael?
think Steve already.
I am not volunteering to speak, but what I'm just going to say is whoever you choose to speak needs to be somebody who is totally engaging and passionate about this topic, because as much as we all want to believe all these council people are going to read every page of this report, they're not going to. And I bet some of them will not have even read it until that meeting and they're scanning it. And so the person who speaks needs to just go and be able to give a great 30,000 foot view, be excited, be impactful, show what the purpose is, and get everybody's attention, because they really won't not have read. And a lot of them won't understand, even if they did read.
I think Steve, it's his baby. I really would like to nominate Steve to do it.
Sure about me, two ways. Number one, I'm a member of the council. So it's sort of a conflict of interest for me to do that. Second, I'm way overexposed. I speak too much, too often, and that's why I'm hoping our chair would be willing to speak, and probably you and 1 or 2 others would be complimentary. I think that's max, frankly.
Yeah, I'm happy to speak. All right, I'm happy to speak. I am not the world's most answer every question that somebody has person, because you already know I'm not as immersed as other people in this group. So I think we need to think about the handling of the questions. I will call on others when it comes time to answer the questions and field them. So, but who else would like to, and Ernie is the chairman, so he can't be the presenter. He's the chairman of the council.
Steve, what's your comfort level as far as answering the question?
Well, I mean, I'm happy to answer a question, but my prediction is that most of the questions will be technical, and that's why I think you and Ladd are a really good team.
Okay, but Ladd will want to focus on training.
Well, we can get him to be broader.
Okay.
I have no hesitation in asking him to do that.
That's
Okay.
And it's
Ernie?
dependent on Ernie's motions, once those are set, as far as guiding all the conversation.
Yeah, I think we'll be
goes.
able to look at that and decide who's best to speak at the various times. Ernie?
Right, that's my hope, is that next week when we meet on the 18th, we can finalize this, but Steve's also going to be on Zoom. So, that's yet a third reason why we don't want him taking too big of a part. And, Deborah, you're going to be there in person. You've been a very dynamic leader of this team. And so I think you certainly ought to be, carrying most of the presentation, and then we'll make sure we have as many others in attendance to carry as possible. So before we end up running out of time, I want to make sure we talk about the grant request.
I'm talking over you, I'm sorry.
So I'll repeat mine and then you can repeat yours. I want to make sure we talk about the grant request because that's a key part of how we move this thing forward. What were you saying?
No, I would want to know who's going to be in person. Raise your hand if you're going to be in person. In person on the 24th. Marge, Ernie, Michael, Deborah. And will the Whitlingers be there in person?
We'll try and one of us is, we've got somebody coming to the house that morning, I just noticed,
Okay,
at
so
11.
Okay,
So,
well, and, all right, so, and that doesn't mean that people who are on the Zoom can't talk, but I just
Okay.
want to know who's gonna be in person, okay? All right, so I think our next focus is on the 18th at 2 p.m. All right, I'll send out the notes from today and the reminder for the 18th, and then on the 18th, if there's any attachments, I'll include that also, okay? Are we good for today?
No, getting back to the grant request.
The grant request, yes.
So, Michael had put together a preliminary document just to be able to share some ideas with the foundation to say, here is something that might be an appropriate, capacity building request from the church. And it couldn't be finalized till we at least get a second estimate for doing work in Fellowship Hall. Michael, are we on a path where you get the second estimate this week and you can update the grant request by the 17th so that it's on the same timeline as the motions that I'm putting together for the 17th, and then we can review the grant request and the motions all together on the 18th?
It is unlikely I will have the quote this week because they're bringing in a second vendor who they deal with I don't know what the word is, but they specialize in speakers for big rooms. It's a secondhand vendor, and they have not come in yet. They're supposed to come in towards the middle of this week. And so unless they pull everything together really quickly on Friday, which I doubt, it won't be till next week. I do think though, well, I know this isn't helpful for the foundation, but I think we have a good, at least ballpark estimate for what it will cost. I don't think it's going to vary too much from there, but I know that doesn't help. So.
No, I think it does. I want something, our best estimate to go to the council for them to either say, no, we can't endorse this. We don't think this is something appropriate to bring to the foundation, or can say, yeah, we understand it still needs a little more tweaking, but as long as it is basically what you've shared with us, we endorse it. I think that would be okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I want to reach out to Fred and Mike and me. We have 4 people on this call who are on the foundation board. My sense is, building on what Michael Bodnick just said, that we have a cap, which is right now an estimate, that is just under $40,000. And so if Michael is accurate, which I believe he is, that, we're going to take the low bid, so we got one under 40,000, we can go with that to the foundation board. And to be honest, my gut instinct says some people on the foundation board will be pleased that it's not higher, because they heard numbers up to 70,000, et cetera, earlier. And I think if we go to the foundation board with a request for up to 40,000, I don't know how Mike and Sandy and Fred feel, but my sense is that's a vehicle we can move.
I would agree with, my foundation hat is on now. And I would agree with that, that when the original numbers that maybe were thrown out to the foundation actually scared some foundation members. And I think that if we come in, you know, gee, not to exceed 40,000, not to exceed 38,000, whatever that number is, I think that it will fly with the foundation. My anticipation is it would fly. I can't vote for everybody on the foundation, but that's my thought.
Sandy, do you have any reflections on that?
I would agree with that comment.
Okay, all right. So we shall defer to Micah Bodnick. Is the up to 40,000 the appropriate number? Up to 45,000 is what is the appropriate up to number?
I would say, to be safe, we should say up to 45,000 at this point, to give a little bit of a wiggle room. But if you looked through, because I think Ernie shared the scope of the project, I mean, everything that we were thinking and more is in that bundle. So I would imagine any other vendor will come at least close to that mark, and I think leaving about a $3,000 or $4,000 wiggle room would be good.
Ernie,
So Michael, can you have an updated version to go out on the 17th so we can review it with this group on the 18th?
An updated version of
The grant request.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you guys are telling me to do this because I'm taking all my instructions from you guys, then what I will do is actually make a grant request more in the form of the grant application.
Right, don't actually submit it online for their consideration.
No.
But write it up in the format of a real grant request that this group can then endorse. And then the council hopefully will endorse, and then it goes to the foundation board, you know, with that additional information, knowing that the AV task force and the council are all behind this. And, you know, hopefully that makes the discussion, you know, well-rounded with the foundation.
I was going to make that exact comment, Ernie, that with my foundation hat on, I think that's where this grant request needs to come from, is it needs to come from the council at, you know, after hearing the AV task force recommendations. That's what that's the way I think it should flow.
It would be helpful though to know, am I on mute? No. It would be helpful to know maybe with a conversation with some of the foundation people, if this is actually a legitimate grant request. Because I mean, I will put effort into it, but if the foundation's not really going to consider it.
So there's five votes on this call right now. Who else?
But the problem is it doesn't get to those 5 votes until it gets out of the grants committee. I'm just saying.
I think there would be pressure not to get it out of grants committee. We've voted on other things and voted things down. I think there would be a lot of pressure to get this out of the grants. It won't die in the grants.
Okay. All
That's
right.
my opinion.
Okay.
You want to put it
all
on?
right, well, we have not, Fred?
I agree with Mike. What has come out of the grants committee, there's no reason this shouldn't come along with some of the requests.
All right, okay, so Michael will put together the proposal to be one of Ernie's motions, okay? All right, look at that, he's very excited about that idea.
How is that happening? Did you all see that?
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
We saw your Disney splash.
No, but I didn't do anything. All I did was put my thumbs up, and all of a sudden there's fireworks, and I saw balloons too earlier. I have no idea what I did.
But
It doesn't work for me.
it's appreciated, we really love it.
You have wine for breakfast?
Yeah. He was driving, remember? All right, I'm gonna call time because it's now 10:03 according to my watch. Thank you all very much once again. We'll see you on the 18th. All right, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Deborah, Marge, and it's a very good team.
All right, well, I would like to say one thing before I'm ending the meeting.